guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pedo.
And also,
Tony Wash.
Oh my God, guys, guess what? We have another guest again this week. We've really been throwing these guests at everybody lately. It's been pretty exciting talking to all these different people. What do you think, Pat?
It's nice that we have friends, I guess.
We got friends in all the weird places, that's for sure.
Wow. That was good. That was really, really good. I struggled with something to say there, and you hit it out of the fucking park, man. That was good.
I appreciate it. So I wanted to mention a couple things that I read this week that I'm kind of excited about. So we had done before there was Pat on the show, my co-host was Ivy, and we had done an episode where we had talked about like real life zombies, and we had talked about people that come back from the dead, like they die and then they end up waking up at like their own funeral and things like that. But that happened again this week in Argentina. Happened to an 8 to 9-year-old woman. She allegedly had a heart attack, and the hospital put her down as dead. And right before they were gonna put her body through the crematorium, her daughter was there and noticed that she was breathing. So I don't know, maybe she didn't really die, maybe she came back to life, I don't know, but she's still alive currently. Some of these people, like, they'll come back for a minute and then they'll just die. So it's really but this one, she's still alive. No further reports yet because it's still fresh, but so there's been another zombie outbreak in Argentina this week. So be ready for that. And then there's this one special situation, which I'm kind of excited that we have someone like Tony here for this topic, because there's a guy in Warwick who claims that he saw an alien like mantis like creature, like it looked like a 6-foot tall praying mantis.
And where was this at? You said Warwick?
This was in Warwick, yeah. And he says he was coming home from his job at the dog food factory that he worked at. And
is this Warwick, Ohio, or Warwick?
I think it's across the pond. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, all right. Yeah, it sounds vaguely British.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole bunch of details, but he was coming home from his dog food factory job, and he saw a UFO, which he did take photos of. And then from the bushes emerged this large human-like praying mantis, and then it kind of backed away and left. But what's really interesting about this is that it's my job to investigate these things. So of course I see this, and my first thought is to reach out to the guy, and they have his name and stuff posted in the article, and I can't find him anywhere. And he's allegedly, like, he's 23. And that's weird that a 23-year-old doesn't have social media, right? I mean, that's strange.
He might have hopped off it already. I mean, if this is something, when this story broke, it probably broke locally first before it made the international press. He might have locked down his Facebook or something already.
Yeah, but then so when you go and research the topic, the source material for the article is from a tabloid called the Daily Star, which is it's not as bad as like Weekly World News, where it's obviously all satire, but it's still pretty bad. So I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I don't know, but I've heard about these like alien, especially lately. It's kind of been like a hot topic in the ufology communities, are these like alien mantis things. And there's a local sighting that happened here with one of my friends who claims that he saw one, and he's a paranormal investigator.
Yeah, the mantis. So I know last week we were talking about Fire in the Sky and the Travis Walton case.
Yeah.
I had brought up another movie called Communion, which was based on the book by Whitley Strieber, and that has what's his name? Christopher Walken in it. Tony, have you seen that? Have you seen either of those movies?
Oh yeah, I saw Communion. It's been at least 10 years, and I've seen Fire in the Sky a couple times. I remember the movie being terrifying.
Yeah, it's Fire in the Sky. But Communion has the mantis aliens in it.
Yeah.
When mostly they're the grays. Like in the abduction scenes, when they come into the house, they're grays. But later on in the movie, when Walken's on the ship and he goes through this whole, like, I think towards the end, he goes and he meets the aliens. Like, he waits up on a rooftop for them to take him because he wants to have like a face-to-face, like a reckoning, right? And they come down and they pick him up, and there's mantis aliens, and he has flashbacks to being a kid as well, when he was abducted, like playing in the woods and shit when he was like 9, and there's mantis aliens. So they're kind of they're not as popular as the Greys, but like they're an established part of the mythology.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's been pretty fascinating. I think that's weird. I mean, you know, because if you look at a praying mantis anyway, I mean, they're fucking terrifying, right? I mean, you see one and it's like, ew, look at that guy.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to go anywhere near it. The first time I ever and I remember the first time I ever encountered a praying mantis was not the actual praying mantis itself. I was outside with my friends. I was a very young child, and we found a leg of one. And it was huge. And I was like, I do not ever want to see whatever that's attached to ever. But, you know, of course, I ended up seeing it. And still, I'm like, I don't want to be friends with you. So I can't imagine seeing one that's fucking human sized like that. That's pretty horrifying to me. So we definitely need more alien praying mantis movies out there, because, you know, Greys, that's old news, man. That's yesterday. These mantises, those things are fucking horrifying. So
yeah.
Yeah, I never really thought the gray aliens were all that creepy, especially with how small they are.
Right. I agree. Yeah, they're so tiny. They're unintimidating, and it's like, I'm not afraid of that. Now give me something.
Well, that's where
that's
where the mind control powers kick in. I mean, if you're looking at them as like a villain, like a monster, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the fact that they're stronger than you; it's the fact that they could paralyze you with thought.
Mentally,
and in which case, it doesn't matter how big or small they are, because you're neutralized.
That's a good point, I guess. I guess that's true. Yeah. Well, yeah, can you imagine like being the only gray alien that doesn't have mind powers? That would suck.
Yeah, you're the dude that gets left in the ship.
Right. Like everybody would hate you. Yeah, you'd be totally shunned from your people.
You gotta wait with the car.
Right. You wait there. You be the lookout. But yeah, so that was my weekly my weekly briefing that I had for you guys. Nothing too crazy has happened yet. Still waiting on the alien disclosure. So
yeah,
one day it'll pop up. But
something that just popped up on my radar today, and I'm kicking myself for not knowing about this sooner. And this kind of ties into what we're talking about right now. The filmmaker Rodney Asher, who did Room 237, which we talked about on a previous episode. It was a documentary about The Shining, but it's not really about The Shining. It's about conspiracy theories and how people all have all these wacko theories about what The Shining's really about. And before that, which I'm kicking myself because I never brought it up on the show, as much as we talk about shadow people. Before that, he had a documentary called The Nightmare, which was all about sleep paralysis. And it went to great lengths to recreate the experiences that people have when they have these sleep paralysis episodes and encountering the hag and shadow people and stuff like that. He has a new documentary coming out this Friday called The Glitch in the Matrix, which is all about the simulated reality theory and the idea that we could be living in basically like the fucking Matrix.
Oh yeah,
right?
Reality, sure.
Yeah, and I loved The Nightmare, and the Room 237 is interesting as hell. So I'm totally jazzed about this. And like I said, I just found out about this afternoon.
I didn't know that was the same guy that did both of those documentaries.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've seen The Nightmare before?
I have seen The Nightmare, yeah, but I didn't see the 237 one.
Tony, are you familiar with either of those guys' movies?
I saw part of The Nightmare one and I kind of turned it off. It just didn't keep my interest whenever I was watching it. But I definitely watched Room 237. I have the soundtrack on vinyl. I mean, it was.
Oh wow! Okay.
I'm very fascinated by the Shining film, the Kubrick version. So yeah.
What's your take on that whole thing?
The conspiracy theories of it all?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think a lot of people that are very creative have a lot of free time and don't put their creativity to better use.
Yep.
You know, I just being completely blatantly honest. I think it's really awesome that people delve into that film as much as they do. And somebody such as Kubrick being at the helm of it, you would understand why people would assume that there is hidden context under a lot of the details of that film. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of that's bullshit. I just think, you know, stuff like the cinematography of it, the transitions between the ladder in the lobby to the exterior of the overlook, stuff like that is really cool that they point that out, because those are things that you may not notice just casually watching the movie. But when you boil down to all the specific conspiracies, I think that's a bit much.
It felt like people were worshiping Kubrick so much as a filmmaker, which I don't. I mean, I like a handful of I like Eyes Wide Shut. I like Clockwork Orange. And that's kind of it. Like, I don't, the rest of his movies I'm like about. But it seems like people were so sure that this man could not make a continuity error that anytime something happens, like a chair was there and then the chair was missing, oh, he must be talking about Native American rights. And it's like, maybe he does so many crazy takes. You always hear these stories that he makes, like, his actors do, like, 60 takes in a row. There can't be a continuity error. And you're going to build this whole theory around what the movie's about because something, he makes a mistake with the filmmaking, but they perceive him as being such like this infallible master, and there's no way that he could have made a mistake. That must have been done on purpose. He must be trying to send us a message.
Well, something similar has happened in modern times with a little game.
QAnon?
Yes and no. We're not talking about them anymore, Pat. We're done with that.
Oh, my sister still is.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
What are we gonna do?
But no, it's a game franchise called Five Nights at Freddy's. And so which is huge.
Yeah.
The kids love the shit. Not just the kids love the shit, it's all the people, all the internet gamers and everybody love it. And the reason why is because the first game came out and it ended up being huge. It was just a happy accident that it got huge. And then the second game came out and the game developer filled it with a whole bunch of stuff. Like, there was no mistakes in the game. Anything that you found in the coding, in the scenes, in any Easter egg you found, it was canon. And he continued to do that through the third game. And then by the time he got to the fourth game, he was kind of burnt out on it. And he's like, people are arguing about colors, different shades of color in the game. It doesn't mean anything. Everybody thinks everything means something and it doesn't. And, he kind of, created this monster of all these people that are telling him what his game means. And it's like, I think that that's very similar with Kubrick. I think that that's definitely happened. It's just, like Tony said, people have too much time on their hands.
But I do think that that's a really interesting perspective, because I know that with my films, I do try and create kind of what Quentin Tarantino did and what Kevin Smith has done, where they have like a universe,
right?
That, this world that encompasses all of their projects and all their characters. And sometimes there's even overlap, whether it's with characters or products in the film or whatever, or even the stories that the characters are telling. And so I do appreciate that. I love when you can delve that much into the detail of a story. And if something reaches that type of cult status, I say more power to them. It's just, I do still find it weird that people will legitimately, and those are just those neurotic people, I think.
And just extremists, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They sit and they think about it and they fixate on it, and they can't get off of that topic because it just, there's something wired in their mind that makes them focus on it that much.
I got into the Five Nights at Freddy's thing. Because I'm a big gamer and I was really into the lore and stuff, but then the fan base ruined it, just like they do everything else.
I don't even know what it is.
Oh my God. It's a shitty mobile game. I mean, I have a 10-year-old son, and he has spent more time watching videos about Five Nights at Freddy than he ever has playing the game. Yeah. And because the gameplay, so Tony, I don't know how familiar with video games. Do you ever play like Night Trap or like?
Oh yeah. Oh.
Okay. So basically it's the same gameplay mechanics as Night Trap, where you are an overnight security guard at a Chuck E. Cheese or a Showbiz Pizza or something. And you have to switch between different cameras because at nighttime, the animatronics come alive.
Okay.
And they start working their way towards the security office where you're at. And basically, you have a certain amount of battery life to close the doors to the security office. So, and you can only leave the doors closed for so long. So you have to carefully monitor where all the animatronics are. Basically, how you would beat the game is you would play through it enough and you would die enough and you would take notes as you play it, much like Night Trap, to where you have like a log of what you have to do at what time. Which is, if you find that is a fun way to play a video game, go right the fuck ahead. But then you play through it enough to you figure out the pattern, you write it down, and then you can go through and you can make it through and survive the
Well,
night.
it's not a pattern. It's just you have to be quick enough. I mean, you end up your reflexes because you can't time the stuff out. It is random, and it gets harder and harder. You got to stay for 5 nights, and every single night gets progressively harder.
Are you sure it's random?
I've played every single game, Pat.
Really?
I've personally played. I haven't watched people. I have played. Yes, it's random. Yeah,
I've never even heard of this before. Because I mean, I'm not a huge gamer, but I have a PS4 and I play a couple of games on my phone when I'm not doing anything else. I've just never even heard of this game. I'm
surprised. It's a big. I mean, it's big in the horror community, pretty much.
Have you seen the?
Oh, go ahead.
Have you seen the trailer for that Nicolas Cage movie that's coming out?
I haven't.
I feel like he's in 1,000 movies.
Right.
So he's got it's called like Happy Land Murders or something. Basically, Nicolas Cage has got a movie coming out where he plays the overnight security guard that gets locked in Willy's Wonderland.
Oh, yeah.
And he plays like the overnight security guard that's locked in, but he ends up being a bigger lunatic than the killer animatronic robots, and it's him.
Of course he is.
Chewing up the scenery covered in fake blood, screaming at the camera while he like chases around a animatronic bunny and shit. Coming on VOD.
I think it comes out this month. Actually, it comes out in like the 15th or some shit. It's coming.
It never ceases to amaze me what scripts get picked up and produced.
Yeah. Well, there's Five Nights at Freddy's fans, man. I'm sure they'll somehow make this canon to that series. It'll be ridiculous, I'm sure.
I always loved those games when Sega CD was popular. I thought Night Trap was awesome. Double Switch.
Oh, Double Switch was fucking incredible.
Yeah, Double Switch was great. I'm trying to think. My buddy was texting me about, I guess they're re-releasing Ground Zero Texas.
Oh my God, that one, that fucking Christmas when that came out. That was my life, was Ground Zero Texas. I was so fucking pumped for that game.
Yeah.
And then I came out and I got a Sega CD and it broke within like 3 days of having it. And this was before there was any internet. This was like 95, 94. And like there was no internet, there was nothing. So I couldn't figure out what the fuck was wrong with my Sega CD until finally I called like the 1-800-SEGA number. And I sat on the phone for like 3 hours for them to say, oh yeah, well, it's defective. You got to take it back to Kmart. They'll give you a new one. And like, go and then I get my new Sega CD and play the rest of Christmas Vacation, play Ground Zero Texas. And that was different though, because that was kind of like you move that cursor on the screen. Yeah. You had to bounce around.
That was like that zombie one, the Zombie Island or whatever. That was one.
That island thing. Yeah, that one was okay. I like Sewer Shark and Ground Zero Texas. Shoot the tubes, dog meat. And
Sewer Shark, relax, pretend it's a game. Maybe we'll even have fun.
They re-released Night Switch on the Switch, the Nintendo Switch.
Night Trap, Night
Trap. I have it on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah. And I didn't get Double Switch yet, but like, oh my God, I remember Corey. One of the Coreys is in it.
Corey Haim.
Yes.
Yeah, Corey Haim.
And that's that band playing the Double Switch song, and oh my God, that's like those full motion video games were incredible. That was such cool technology. I learned to edit because of the crisscross make your own music video maker. Like that, like perfectly conveyed how you edit, like the basics of it and stuff. Like that was. I'm going to start rambling about video games now. So somebody please take over.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tangent. Sorry, I kind of
did. Dude, you pushed my button when you said Ground Zero Texas. My head just fucking blew up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, because when my buddy Jason, who does all the special effects in my movies, so he's my like horror nerd friend. And when he sent me that text message and said they're re-releasing Ground Zero Texas, I was like, it was like, you have that like life flashes before your eyes moment where I was like, all of a sudden I was 13 again. I was like, holy fuck, I haven't thought of Ground Zero Texas in 27 years. Where the hell did that come from?
I worked midnights for 7 years, so I've watched the cutscenes for all this stuff at some point at 3 a.m. while on the clock. But yeah, because like you talk about Night Trap. The gameplay for that sucks. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Like if you play the game to win,
It's
you don't
awful.
know what the story is. You almost have to like. That's one of those things where you're better off going on YouTube and watching, because somebody at some point, I mean, I know it's up there because I've seen it, but like, watch the 40-minute Night Trap movie, which is all of the actual story stuff just cut together.
Yeah.
And then you get the full story about the vampires and the family and the kids and the weirdo outside and shit like that. Like, you get the full story. If you were to play the game and win, you don't know what the fuck is going on
You got
because you
no idea.
can't watch any of it.
You're in
Right.
dark rooms half the time.
Right.
Waiting for those tar dudes to like fall through a hole.
Yeah.
Worst vampires ever. Like,
Such a cool game. Such a cool concept for a game. I mean, being that came out, that was one of the first games for Sega CD, and I remember that came out like probably 1992. So I'm 12 years old.
sure.
That game blew my mind. I'm a horror fan, and I love girls running around in their underwear. That game was like bar none for me. I was like, this is it. This is all I need for the rest of my life is Sega CD and Night Trap and Sewer Shark, of course.
Yes.
Which I never even beat Sewer Shark. I'm so disappointed
I did.
in myself.
Sewer Shark wasn't. It was. I beat it. It was like a skill you had to develop because it was memorizing the pattern. That's all those games were. It was like Dragon Lair. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not gameplay. It's not a platformer. It's not an RPG where there's strategy. It's literally muscle memory and hand-eye coordination, and like sitting there with your buddy drinking Mountain Dew till 3:00 in the morning on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And you're just grinding away at it. And then you wake up and the guy's like, I got to the next level. And that was my childhood, basically. Yeah. I don't know like why we took a turn away from that stuff. Like, that was such an innovative, like, way to mix video games and storytelling. And, I still think Sega CD was like my favorite
There's like
console.
way too much story to like a lot of these games. Like, I tell you what, if I go to play a modern video game nowadays, I stick it on my console and it's like 2 hours before I even get to start to fucking play it. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah,
I want to play the game.
with the PlayStation, you get like 2 free games every month through PlayStation Plus, and so I downloaded. I think it was last month was like Just Cause 4, and I've never played any of those games, but I thought, I'm gonna check it out. I threw it on for like 20 minutes, and it was pretty much 15 minutes of story mode and then 5 minutes of me running around doing shit that I don't even know what the hell I'm supposed to do. I'm like, okay, this game's kind of like Bionic Commando, which I played 35 years ago.
Right.
But it's like, other than that, I really don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
What
how
are the
I feel
games?
about it.
What are the games this month? I haven't checked yet. I know they just came out today.
I don't. I probably jump on my PS4 once a week, once every other week, so I don't get very much game time.
Oh.
Yeah.
I tend to revert to mindless running around shooting monsters with Killing Floor 2, or
Because you could just jump on and play it. It's nice.
Yeah, it's basically my buddy who lives in California, and then my buddy Jason, who's my effects supervisor. We'll jump on and just do that for a few hours and bullshit.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
easy to be able to have a conversation and not die in the game because we've been playing it for however long. So
Right.
Yeah.
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 Well, speaking of media, there's a reason why we have Mr. Tony here with us tonight. we haven't done that part yet. Nobody knows who you are yet, Tony. Pat?
I know
Tony.
who I am.
Tony's from the Chicagoland area. In 2005, he attended Tom Savini's special effects school in Pittsburgh and began production on his Choose Your Own Adventure horror feature, It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want To, receiving numerous festival awards upon its release, followed by rave reviews from critics and fans alike. It's My Party solidified Walsh and his company, Scotchworthy Productions, as a reliable source for quality independent horror. I know Tony because he was the helm of the World of Death series, which took basically all of us losers that did not win the ABCs of Death competition, and he was smart enough to put all of our movies together and then release them under the World of Death banner. And I know you're associated with BloodyDisgusting.com, which is the premier horror movie website, also based out of Chicago. and he directed a movie called The Rake, which I know I watched in preparation for tonight's show, and also directed a movie called The Muck, which was a lot of fun. And I'm sure we're going to get to talk about that in a second. So is that it?
Yeah,
Is there
I
anything
met
else?
Tony through Pat tonight,
Right.
this evening. That's
Just 24 minutes ago.
yeah. It's great. Nice to see you again, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice to see your audio wavelengths down over there on the screen.
So, what part of Chicago are you from? I've never as much as we've interacted over the years. I don't think I've ever done the whole who the fuck are you?
Yeah,
You know,
and it's one of those things where it's like I'm like, okay, so you might see people at a horror convention. You might become friends with these people, but you don't actually hang out outside of the horror convention. And so, I know that we have a lot of common friends and stuff like that. But I'm out of the Chicago suburbs. I live in Palatine right now.
okay.
The site of the famous Brown's Chicken murders.
Brown's Chicken.
Right? That's how everybody knows Palatine.
Everybody, when you say Palatine, they say Brown's Chicken. Palatine, Brown's Chicken. Palatine, Brown's Chicken.
I grew up in St. Charles, Illinois, and my wife is from Palatine. And so when we got together and we started dating and we eventually moved in together, she was like, I want to live in Palatine. I really like to live in this area. It's my hometown. I want to be close to my friends and family. And I'm all about it because I love her family. I love her friends. But I was like, I'm moving to Palatine, like Brown's Chicken Palatine. It's just always kind of weirded me out, that was a big.
So Ashley's from Dayton, Ohio. So back in what was it, the early 90s?
93 maybe, I want to say.
There was the Brown's Chicken Massacre, and some people. This is actually we're laughing about it, but it's a fucked up story.
Terrible. Yeah, it was 5 people that were working late night and closing up the Brown's Chicken restaurant. Basically got murdered, and they went in the next day. The workers went in the next day to open the restaurant up and found 5 bodies. I think it was 5 in the cooler, the walk-in cooler, and it was unsolved for 20 years, literally unsolved for 20 years, where they had no idea who did this. And it turned out that this one of the 2 guys who did it was bragging to his girlfriend about how he did this, which I don't know how you murder somebody and then brag about it. Who thinks
that's really weird.
Yeah, who thinks somebody's gonna be impressed by that? But so that's how they got caught ultimately, is he was telling his girlfriend about how him and his friend or brother or whoever it was, they went in and they, I think they robbed it and then they just shot these people.
Was it random, or were they? I had heard when it was still unsolved. I remember somebody from Palatine. I was at a party, and I'm like, "Oh, where are you from?" And they say Palatine, and I say Brown's Chicken, and they said, "Yeah, I'm like, "Whatever happened with that?" And they said, "Well, I have a friend on the police force, and they think that it was." And who knows if this was fucking true, but they thought it was somebody that worked there, had an ex-boyfriend or something, and that's who came in. Or did it end up being just completely random?
I don't recall. I mean, that it got solved. It's probably been 7-8 years since it got solved at this point. So
yeah,
I don't recall. Yeah, it was pretty crazy actually.
Is the Brown's Chicken still there?
No, it's I think at Chase Bank now.
Oh, well, I mean, okay. It's probably really haunted. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't go into the vault of that Chase.
That's for sure, yeah. Gosh, Tony, you got to be better at telling your Brown's Chicken story. You're from Palatine. You got to know this stuff.
No, he's from St. Charles. You said,
oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Well, he lives there now.
I've lived in Palatine for about a year and a half now, but I was put on the spot. I didn't realize that was going to be the topic.
That's what the whole episode's about. Yeah. You didn't know?
But so, yeah, so I've lived in the Chicagoland area for pretty much my entire life, except for when I was in Pittsburgh for Savini School. I did that for 2 years. And while I was going to school there, I've always wanted to be a director. Worked in video stores when I was in high school and stuff. And so I've always been a big film fan and always wanted to make movies. And so when I was going to school there, I just kind of said, you know what, I need to, we were doing all these makeups for movies, but we were only taking pictures of them. And I was like, well, how come nobody's shooting a movie while we're going to school? Yeah. And so I came up with a couple of different cockeyed ideas to make a movie or a music video or something so that everybody could, do a makeup for it, and figured I'd get all my friends to do makeups, and so the project would be filled with all these great special effects, and it wouldn't really cost me anything because everybody's doing it to get their stuff on camera,
Right.
Right.
you know. And ultimately that project ended up becoming It's My Party, which started as a short film, and I wanted to do the choose your own adventure aspect of it because I knew that if I just made a short film, it's not really that much of a calling card. There's so many people making short films, and this was right before HD became kind of the general
Yeah.
basis for shooting a movie at the independent level. I was still shooting on standard definition. Um, but so yeah, so I basically got that film together while I was doing my third and fourth semesters at Savini School, finished shooting it, and then uh, that ended up kind of starting my whole career as a filmmaker. And since then, I've done I did Chance in Hell, which is a World War II Nazi zombie film in 2010. Um, I did High on the Hog with Sid Haig, Robert Zadar, and Joe Estevez in 2012. Which is more of a grindhouse kind of crime drama thriller.
Yeah.
I did obviously The Muck, as you said, which is a short film that went to South by Southwest and Screamfest and a bunch of other big film festivals, which was a really cool experience. And we're still trying to turn that into a feature. Um, 2015, I did The Rake, which is based on a creepypasta. And then we released in 2018 Skeletons in the Closet, which is an 80s horror anthology, very much in the vein of um, Tales from the Crypt and, uh, kind of meets Married with Children meets Elvira. Um, so, but been doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. World of Death, as you said, Pat. I've been one of the two co-producers of that show for the better part of a decade now. We've shown over 500 short films. We feature more than 50 countries at this point, filmmakers from more than 50 countries. So it's a really cool, uh, a, avenue for independent horror filmmakers to showcase their work through Bloody Disgusting, which most horror aficionados know of.
It's the only horror website that has its own app. So, and a landscape rife with horror movie websites. I mean, throw a rock and you're going to hit four of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody Disgusting has kind of distinguished itself as being the most legit of, the horror movie websites. And it's,
They're
So.
definitely the most. I'd say they're the most well known and the most mainstream. That would be the word I'm looking for, because I think that well, I love that they are all encompassing. I think that they do primarily focus on the more popular stuff because that draws more attention, and so that's what's really great about the guys who run Bloody Disgusting is that when I talked to them about World of Death, they were all about incorporating that into kind of their palette because it was, something that helped showcase independent talent.
Right. It's a very positive thing for the horror movie community and for independent filmmakers and for filmmakers just coming up. The reviews that I've done where I'll talk about them on Twitter, and I can't tell you how many times, probably every other month that I do one, not all the time, but like most of the time, I'll get a message from one of the filmmakers saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much for doing it." Like I picked their fucking movie, but like, just the amount of appreciation and gratitude these people have that somebody's paying attention to their movie and somebody's showing it and somebody's giving them that pat on the back that gets them to do the next one.
Yeah.
It takes so little encouragement, and filmmakers and artists are so like attention starved. Like they're like Tinkerbells. Like they die if they don't get applause.
Well,
And like,
but the problem is because, not to interrupt you, the problem is because ultimately the medium is oversaturated right now and has been for the last 15 years since HD became, commonplace. It's so easy to make a movie that everybody makes a movie, and so you've got a lot of people out there producing a film and releasing it, and your content just gets lost in the mix.
I agree with that. I see that happens a lot with I do a weekly review, and a lot of the directors will reach out and they show a lot of gratitude. Meanwhile, I'm like, wow, thanks for recognizing that I recognized you. That's great.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's how I feel. And like, I love that I have people such as Pat who are enthusiastic enough about what World of Death is that they want to help with it without saying, "Where's my paycheck?" It's about being a part of a community, which I think is really awesome, and that's what makes World of Death so great. But again, it's about trying to get stuff out there because so many people work so hard, and as any of us know with our different passions, whether it's a podcast or writing or directing or whatever, you are so passionate about it, it's your baby. And then you finish it and you're proud of it and you're excited and you show your friends and family, and of course they're going to tell you they love it because they don't want to tell you it sucks, whether it does or doesn't suck. And then beyond that audience, you really don't get any feedback, and or if you do, it's the trolls on YouTube, and which are terrible,
Yeah.
and so it's just it's really great to be able to have created this community and seen it grow as much as it has. And um, it's funny because we've transitioned. I would love to talk a minute about Bloody Disgusting TV.
Sure.
Sure.
So in October, Bloody Disgusting launched. They partnered with Cinedigm, which Cinedigm is like this huge media mogul. They're like this gigantic company that does distribution and all sorts of stuff. And they run a lot of like Roku channels and things like that.
Yeah.
And so they partnered with Bloody Disgusting to create Bloody Disgusting TV, which is currently on Roku. I believe it's channel 770, if my memory serves me correctly. It's on Rad TV, which is an app that you can get on your phone, which is how I watch the channel because I don't have Roku. And it's also on an MX player, which is an international platform that has over 250 million subscribers internationally. And they have a lot of older films, like they're showing Reanimator right now. They've got the Crazies and
Yeah.
all sorts of House on Haunted Hill, all sorts of classic horror movies. But then they also have some original programming where they took their podcast, The Boo Crew, and are doing a video version of that. And there's one called Hello Horror, which talks about all things horror. And then there's Bloody Bites, which is what World of Death is turning into. And so the cool thing about Bloody Bites is it's giving the filmmakers an opportunity to make some sort of revenue off of the ads that are playing during the episodes.
Okay.
Whereas YouTube with World of Death really didn't have that opportunity.
Right.
So it was just exposure. So I'm really excited about that. We've been on the air now for a little over 3 months, and it sounds like the numbers are really promising that they've been getting back from Roku. And the unfortunate thing is that being said, we're kind of transitioning away from World of Death, and I know I've expressed this to Pat, who's going to kind of help me finish out the last episodes here with reviews. But we're looking to close the doors on World of Death this summer, which would be like episode 230 something. So it's been a good run.
Yeah, well, sometimes you have to, you got to change with the times. And right now, Roku channels they're hot. They're the new thing. So,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with having a transition as long as your message stays the same, as long as your goal is still, as long as you're doing what you can. It sounds like it's going to be even better for indie creators and stuff like that. So, can't be mad at that.
Yeah, as much as YouTube is so readily available to anybody at any point in time, I think that, a channel is a spot that people are going to land on and check it out for a period of time, as opposed to YouTube, where you're constantly inundated with click on this and change this and go here and do that.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
and plus YouTube's more on the go, whereas with Roku, and obviously you can still watch this channel on the go. Like I said, I watch it on Rad TV on my iPhone. But if you really want to get the full experience, sit down on your couch, pop it on your TV on your Roku, and stream it that way.
Right.
And it's pretty awesome. And so we're really excited about that. I'm excited about the transition, and we've got some really awesome content these next few months that we're premiering. So,
Okay. Well, that's exciting. I'm excited for you. It sounds great. It sounds like it's going to be tons of fun. Well, let's get back to, kind of why we got you. The big reason we got you here. So I watched your movie today, Mr. Tony, the Rake. I watched that, and So I know we've never met before tonight. I am a full-time Fortean investigator. I mean, I have a podcast, but I chased mythical creatures for a living, that I don't believe are so mythical. So it was kind of funny because, Pat tells me that, because we've been doing this guest thing this is kind of a new thing for us. And he tells me that he's interested in having you come on the show. And he's like, yeah, he just did this movie about the Rake. And I'm like, oh, the Rake. Me and the Rake have a really interesting relationship. So, I'm curious, what led to you wanting to make a movie about this creepy pasta?
So again, Jason, my special effects supervisor, who's
Uh-huh.
one of my best friends, he and I will sit and bullshit horror all day. And so we were trying to, this was right off the success of the festival success of the Muck short film.
Uh-huh.
We spent the better part of 2014 developing the feature length version of that movie. And after 6 or 7 months, we got to the point where we kind of said, you know what? We're not generating the financial interest that we thought we would get from investors to produce this movie on the scope that we had hoped. So we're going to have to, kind of put this one on the back burner for the time being. And I was really disappointed because I thought that the movie had a lot of steam. And at that point in my career as a filmmaker, I felt like I was on the up and up. And so it was just really disheartening for me that we had to kind of shut the doors on that project. So I was sitting at Jason's house one night. We were having a couple of beers. We were probably watching a shitty 80s horror movie on TV.
Yeah.
And we went outside for a minute so he could smoke a cigarette. And I was just like, I'm bummed, man. Like I wanna do something. And he's like, well, fuck it. If we can't, sorry if I'm not supposed to
No,
say.
you can cuss. It's
Okay.
fine. We're vulgar on this show.
Okay.
We're not good people.
So, he's like, well, fuck it. Like, if you can't make the Muck, which we wanted to make for, $1 million or 1.5 million or something, if you can't make that, why don't we do something else? Let's make a low budget movie about a creepypasta. What about the Rake? And I'd heard of Slender Man and a couple of the other creepypastas, but I'd heard of the Rake, but I never really did much research on it. I'm not a Reddit rabbit holer or any of that
Right.
stuff. So Jason's like, well, here, just read this. And he pulled a couple of Rake stories up on his phone. And I read through them. I'm like, this is pretty cool. My two favorite subgenres of horror are haunted houses and creature features.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I've always wanted to do that. And this would be something that part of the criticism with the Muck was it was too big. And so we needed, if we were going to realistically make a film, it would have to be something that takes place primarily in one location with a minimal group of actors. But where I believe my film family exceeds versus or excels versus other independent companies is that we do really well with the practical special effects work, because both Jason and I went to Savini's effects school. And so we thought if we can do something that has minimal group of actors, minimal locations, so the movie's cheap in general, except for the monster and the death scenes, that should be feasible at a lower budget. And
Yeah, absolutely.
so it was basically incepted that night. And then I got together with two of my co-producers, Robert Patrick Stern and Sarah Sharp, who I've worked on 3 features at this point, and we produced the Muck together, and just kind of pitched them the idea, and they were on board with it. And that was October of 2014, and by March we were shooting.
I'll say this. I watched the Muck today too. Pat sent me that. I didn't realize that was a thing that was out there. And I really like that. I'm a big creature feature person as well. So I like this new kind of updated version of like the Blob. And I'm very sad that this hasn't been a thing yet, and I hope that it does in the future.
How big did it get?
Uh,
You had said the movie got too big. I'm like, oh, like where does that, because the short is pretty for our listeners who have not seen it. First of all, go see it. It's on Vimeo. But the Muck, watch it. It's on Vimeo.
Yeah.
Just Google it.
It's also in an episode of World of Death. I think it's episode 24. It's Halloween episode of whatever, 2016, I think. So I think it's episode 24. Yeah. So
We'll link it in the
long,
podcast in the
6 minutes long.
description. So
Yeah, and it's like 6 minutes long. It hits all the bases. It moves very, very quickly, and so it's basically a chick takes a bath, and the bathtub discharges something other than water, and hilarity ensues. So what I'm wondering is like how big did that get? Because you could keep that relatively small, right? But I mean, where's the fun in that? How big did it get?
So basically, that sequence would be the
The opening tag or something,
yeah,
right?
essentially, it's the second death in the movie.
Okay.
The entire movie takes place in 1986 and the summer of 1986 in a neighborhood that surrounds a like a pond. There's and so the focal point of the story is like 4 households surrounding this pond that have waterfront property on this pond,
okay.
and so it's just kind of what's happening with those characters and how the muck is slowly infesting their plumbing in these houses and how it's killing them one by one and whatnot. And it all takes place over the course of like 4th of July weekend or whatever type of thing.
Okay. All right.
So when we did our World to Death contribution, which was T is for Tentacles from the ABCs, even though it was for the ABCs of Death,
Which is very similar to muck.
yeah. So I was so convinced that like I thought like we're making live action hentai here, like this is something that's never been done before. Now tentacle porn is very passe, but this was like in 2012. Not that like we even invented it back then, but to do a live action representation of that was a little like you didn't see it. And now I mean they sell dildos that look like tentacles, like but back then once again it wasn't as commonplace. I was so convinced that not only were we going to win the ABCs of Death, but that this was going to be like this was going to lead to bigger and better things, that I went and wrote the full-length screenplay for that and was like was like, we're gonna make so much fucking money off this tentacle shit, and like was just absolutely. I cranked it out in like less than a month, and just sat there and was like, all right, let's see, when's it gonna happen? When are we gonna make this fucking thing? And it never happened.
I mean,
And
you
people
still could. I just think that maybe don't pitch it to the horror community. Pitch it to the porn community.
There you go.
Well, yeah, because there was what it was going to be called was Something's Under the Bed, like Something Under the Bed is Drooling. 'Cause I'm a big Calvin and Hobbes fan,
Yeah.
and that was going to be the World of Death thing was going to be the first death in the movie, and then moving forward from that, there was going to be this monster that traveled through people's beds, and it would come out from different people's beds. So there was a scene with 2 guys where they were killed, and that was very homoerotic. Obviously, there was a scene where a chick goes on the run and she falls asleep in her car, and then it comes out in this empty parking lot and attacks her in the car. And we played with like the whole convention of what's a bed and when you fall asleep and why is it traveling underneath the bed, and then the third act was completely bonkers. But yeah, man, it's hard. Like when you have these great ideas that the world just doesn't want to fucking listen to, or at least in your own mind, you're like, this is great. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna, and even like the short, I mean, you get some success with it. People seem to like the short, and it's like, okay, well, if you like the 6-minute version, wait till you see the 85-minute version.
It's all about just finding the right audience. If I imagine if I had more connections to big money producers, they wouldn't have a problem investing in something because that we've done, because I think the quality speaks for itself. Even if they don't think that I'm a talented filmmaker, they can at the very least look at my co-producers and my other film family representatives like Rob's camera work and Sarah's production design and Jason's special effects and say, these guys are competent. They just need a little more money behind their projects to actually get them to the next level. But it's all about who you know. And right now things are very political with filmmaking, so which we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But I'm glad that the film did what it did. It helped us secure some of the financing for the Rake. So
Yeah.
the Rake essentially would not have happened if it wasn't for the muck.
Well, you made the Rake at a really good time at kind of because the Rake legend was, I mean, that was pretty much right when it came out was when you guys were talking about it. I mean, it's pretty new. And, I got to tell you, it's a hell of a lot better than the big Slender Man blockbuster. That movie was not good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then, that's the really unfortunate thing is I don't think that the Rake was packaged well at all. I think that when we were making that movie, it's like what Pat said about Tentacles, where, and I felt that way about most of my films. When I was making It's My Party, I thought it was going to be the next Evil Dead. And I'm sorry that I say that out loud, but
That's all right, man. It's
I was like, this is going to be the next independent, cult classic for horror. And in some ways it became that with a lot of people, and in a lot of ways it didn't become that. And so I appreciate the audiences that all my projects have found, and that I've been able to make movies for almost 2 decades at this point. But the Rake was something that when we were making that movie, we were like, this is legit. This is like us getting to Hollywood. I felt like we had actually made it. And so I'm very proud of how good that movie looks. I love the monster. I love the actors in it. I think that the set design, that house is so creepy. Those woods are creepy.
Yeah.
So it was definitely timely. I think it worked great. And I agree. I thought the Slender Man feature was crap.
Yeah.
So
this one was much better. If Hollywood was gonna tell a creepypasta story, this one should have been it, because they just didn't do the Slender Man justice at all. And the Rake is so mysterious that you kind of had your wiggle room to kind of make it how you wanted. And in the movie, I'm not sure how many of the listeners have watched it. They probably will now, but in the film, the monster changes, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I have to, for being someone who seems so embedded in the community of creepypasta, I do sincerely appreciate your leeway with how we told the story, Ashley, because I think that some people would look at how we told the Rake and say, oh, well, that's not at all what, you took way too many liberties with the creature design and just kind of the mythos of it. And so I do appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it as much.
Well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't, I was worried because, like I said, I have a really strange relationship with the Rake because, again, being, I do a lot of cryptozoology. I myself am making a documentary about the Mothman currently. And so a lot of people come to me and they tell me all their weird, crazy sightings and encounters. And a lot of those is the Rake. And it can get kind of annoying. I say all the time on the show, you've got 3 different types of people when you're in this business. You've got the people that are lying and they want their 15 minutes of fame. You got the people that are mentally ill and they believe that they really had these encounters but didn't. And then you've got the people that are telling the truth. Unfortunately, when it comes to like the Rake stories, a lot of those people, it's trendy to tell that story. So it kind of hurts. It hurts my community a little bit in a way. However, I have recently found out that the Rake is based off of an actual creature in the cryptozoology community known as crawlers. And it's pretty much the same creature, which is really kind of interesting. So getting the Rake story out there and making people kind of dig, because at first you like see the pictures of the Rake and like you hear the story and you're like, wait, is this real? And then you start digging into it and you come to find out, oh, there are sightings of this thing. There are happenings of this thing. And then it gets people actually interested in high strangeness. I mean, it's a good start into it. So it's definitely made me change my perspective on things because, especially recently, it's just been kind of a theme. The Rake's kind of been coming up in my life a lot lately. So it's interesting that we're hearing now. I don't know. I might have to cut this question because I don't know if this is a rumor that I should bring up or something you don't want to bring up. But I hear you're playing with the idea of making a movie about the Wendigo.
Oh wow! Where'd that come from?
Oh, wow!
You told me. I don't know. I didn't like hack into your email. I mean,
did I tell you that? I don't.
Yes.
Dude, I don't remember. Oh, that's right. I did tell you that. I'm sorry. I'm so like wrapped up in so much fucking shit right now in my life.
No, it's good.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of trying to. It's tough because it's like, you don't want to talk too much about things that are in development.
Yeah, we talked about that before the show. Me and Pat did actually.
Yeah, I kind of heard part of that, and so it's like I understand where you're coming from, because you don't want to speak before something happens. You don't want to put the cart before the horse. But I've been working on a script that I think kind of has some aspects of that, and I've actually got another concept that is a lot more in tune to the Wendigo or Wendigo, or I know there's like multiple different pronunciations
Yeah.
of it depending on
Yeah,
where
there
you're
is.
at in the Algonquian you know area. But
Yeah.
I I had actually done a short film that was based loosely off the Scary Stories That Tell in the Dark rendition of the tale,
Okay. Yeah.
which I always thought was more terrifying than the kind of flesh eater
Yeah.
version. The idea of this kind of fiery effigy carrying you off into the night in the middle of the winter, that story was always my favorite from the three Scary Stories books.
Okay.
So I did a short film that has never been finished editing, and no one's ever seen the light. No one's ever seen it, unfortunately, and I feel terrible about it. But I did that back in 2006 after shooting It's My Party, and I've always kind of wanted to go back and touch upon that concept a little bit more. And I feel like the Wendigo is so much more uh, popular these days, so much more mainstream that
It really is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would be a good time to do that. And the concept I have, I think, could be done for relatively cheap because it's very contained to minimal cast, minimal actors, minimal
Yeah.
locations, and um, so. But
Yeah.
I have to
You could
develop the
probably do
story.
something like.
So, Pat, if you want to spitball movie ideas, you said you can write a script in a month. But
Oh, hey, anything you need written on spec, you know me, I don't look for a paycheck. But seriously, look at the if you're going to listen to one episode of ours, because we watched two of your movies, and I didn't even get to talk about the Rake. I didn't even get a chance to talk about the Rake yet. My impression of it, but we did an episode on Wendigos. What Wendigos, depending on I don't think it's what part of the Algonquin like landscape you are. I think what part of the Midwest you are and how bad your accent is.
yeah, right.
But in Chicago, it's like Wendigos. We did an episode on them. Probably, I think it was like December. It was when we were moving into
It
the
was
winter
December.
season.
Yep. It was.
And it's one of our better episodes, not only because we touched upon the mythology, but because we don't for most of the episode. We talk about literally everything else. But yeah, I mean, we did a deep dive. That's why it was so funny that you brought it up. And I mentioned it to Ashley's because we did a deep dive on them about a month ago.
Yeah.
Month and a half
very
ago.
Recently, yeah.
And then to hear that you were working on it for a movie. Yeah, there's so many different variations to that mythology. And it's something that I think the conclusion that we came from on the show was that it's probably not, it was probably just like Native Americans explaining, how terrifying the wintertime is in the Midwest.
Totally. And Greek.
Right.
And
You know what I mean? And why people do crazy shit when they suffer from hypothermia. There probably wasn't any kind of biological counterpoint where there was some kind of misidentified creature. It was just, being stuck on the Midwestern plains in the middle of February and dealing with the freezing cold and howling wind. And that, and the uncertainty of life and how that's terrifying enough.
Well,
But moving,
one of the reasons why I bring up the Wendigo is because a lot of people, when they think of the Wendigo, they think of like that deer type of creature, and that's not a part of the legend at all. As a matter of fact, they were described as like these tall, lanky, gray skin, no hair. I mean, kind of beings that that's what they look like in almost every single version of the way it's told. And so that's interesting because now guess what? We also have the Rake, and then we have, the cryptozoological crawlers. So they're all kind of part of that same category. So I don't think it would be a bad idea to like lean into that, having experience with the makeup and stuff, because the practical effects in that movie were amazing in the Rake. They were really good.
Yeah, so I don't know anything about the Rake. I don't know creepypasta. I know what the Slender Man is, but going back to the Five Nights at Freddy thing, that's only because I have a kid that watches YouTube videos
Right.
about it. And there was that heartbreaking case up in Wisconsin where the two girls, tried to kill the third because of Slender Man and that documentary, which was really good. But yeah, the Rake, I went into that not knowing anything about any of this and was completely blown away because I had never seen any Tony's movies. And once again, like I kind of knew this dude, but not really. And I was like, wow, this guy makes real fucking movies. Like that's how good that looked. That opening scene was great. I wanted to ask you like how hard was it? I'm sure it wasn't that hard, but like just shooting that first kill in front of the kids because you did. I mean, that was practical effects when the dude's throat splits open and dumps all the fucking guts out on the floor.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, was that a concern? Like when their parents were like, "Yes, you can use our kid in the movie."
Well,
like,
so we had a group of producers from LA basically co-finance the project with us, and they're the ones who got some of the name talent. Like
they rented you their children.
well, no. So they just the project was sold during production very much so as this Hollywood production, and so when you're shooting in Arlington Heights, Illinois, and Polo, Illinois, where the people are not accustomed to a film production taking place, and you're coming in and actually have big lights and actually have a big camera, and you have an actor that was in Dumb and Dumber 2 with Jim Carrey, and an actress that was in the Coyote Ugly and Clash of the Titans and stuff. They look at that and they're like, oh, this is pretty big deal, this is pretty awesome. So not only do they want to let you do whatever it is that you need to do to accomplish getting the film in the can, they're excited about it the whole time.
Yeah.
And so not only did the family that we rented that house from let us totally throw blood all over their house, but on top of it, the parents of those little kids were like, well, my kid's been in a local Luna carpet commercial. Other than that, nothing. Like they were in a student production of Midsummer Night's Dream or something, and now here they are starring in a movie that that's going to actually be distributed and be out there. And so they were very open to it. Both of those kids, Joey and Alexa, were awesome kids to work with. So yeah, it wasn't a big deal. We shot, like I sprayed them in the face with the blood. But other than that, they knew what was going on, and I kind of explained it. And there's that scene where there's kind of like the nightmare where Alexa has her eyes cut out as the little girl, and so knowing that she was excited to be able to do that herself, she wasn't as scared about him having his eyes cut out because she knew it was all makeup.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he's pretty young, but God, that one kid, the boy he's got the most impressive head of hair I think I've ever seen. Is that his hair?
Oh yeah, we didn't put him on or anything.
Lucky kid.
It's just you normally see it cut around how you see stuff like that done so that with the cutting where the kids aren't obviously viewing but you didn't do that. And that's I think what like caught me so off guard with that opening scene. And then it goes right from there, almost right from there, maybe right from there, into a drone shot of the car driving down the road. And that's when I was like, wow, this is a real fucking movie. Like this, you're right, it does look great. And then the movie itself was good, but then skipping to the very end, it ends on a very, very strong note too.
Thank you.
And that's what I was like, wow, like you talk about how this was your first real movie and this was like very professional. And, it looks like $1 million. It looks like $16 million according to IMDb. And it definitely, well, my IMDb page is full of bullshit. Don't worry about it. I that's what it's there for. But yeah, so it was, it was impressive as fuck. And I like I said, I knew nothing about the Rake. I thought it was a great story because it dealt with mental illness and compassion, how the two siblings trying to show compassion for the cousin, or no, the brother and the cousin trying to show compassion for the sister, and how both of their significant others were I don't know, less than compassionate about it, less than empathetic.
Yeah.
And I didn't know enough about the original thing to draw any kind of comparisons back. So that didn't upset me at all.
Well, it's unfortunate because we we had intended on incorporating a lot more of the creature mythos into the story, as well as the story of the characters, and a lot of that was cut out for the sake of just making it a quicker movie.
Yeah. Oh, the running, you can't beat that running time.
Oh,
Like, oh,
and that's not up to me though. When you get, that's kind of the give and the take of when you sign on with people who are giving you money to make a movie. You know, you kind of have to let them have their druthers at time, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And so we had to lose a lot of the interview footage with the killer Jacob Murphy at the beginning of the movie. There's
yeah.
really great narrative work there where he is explaining his own backstory of, like, you know, what you see in the movie is just him saying, you know, the rake has infected my life and now it'll infect yours. But what we shot of that interview is him explaining how he first came across the rake when it infected his mother and she commits suicide. And when he goes and finds her dead body, she's blown her head off with a shotgun in the bathroom. And her 5-year-old son discovers her body and he watches the rake blossom out of her dead body. And
Okay.
that, all of that description to me is what really drives home just how terrifying the rake can be in our story.
Yeah.
But
Well,
unfortunately, it was all taken out of
Well, that's something I wanted to
it,
say about it was that, the whole lore behind the rake, like, and I don't know if, it sounds like it was on purpose, but I didn't know originally if it was that you can kind of manifest this creature. Because at first it was kind of ambiguous, right? We didn't know if this was a real thing or if it was mental illness. And so, but part of it is that if you believe in it, if you give it, in real life, if you give it power, then it exists. And that's kind of what I was picking up from it, watching that opening sequence and whatnot.
I initially had described it to people when I'm at conventions or when I'm talking on a podcast. I always used to describe it as Freddy Krueger, but a monster. So, like, imagine Freddy Krueger with a werewolf. But to me, it's a lot more. It hits home a lot more if you say it's like Candyman, but it's a werewolf.
yeah, I think it's a little bit headier than Freddy Krueger or your typical monster because of the way that it deals with the way that trauma and PTSD and especially childhood trauma is like a virus,
Yeah,
and the way that it's spread and the way that it can be passed. It's generational sometimes too, and the fact that you have the one sister decide to terminate the pregnancy, and then the cousin is she's knocked up, and that's a plot. And I'm giving away the whole fucking movie now, but like,
that's all right.
I thought that level of that to have something contextually layered like that is not something that you see in your average horror movie, and it definitely wasn't something I expected from anything related to creepypasta. And I guess I don't even know that much about. I mean, I know it's like a Reddit thing. If you guys want to talk about that real quick, or maybe it's already we kind of blew past it, but
Yeah, I mean,
like
they're
the
just
difference between what was the original Rake mythos and how did it, like, what's the deal with creepypasta? On the off chance that the listeners are like me and don't
I don't know.
hang out on there or whatever.
Creepypastas are they're basically modern day urban legends. Sometimes, they have some type of, alleged evidence behind it. Like Slender Man started because there was a photograph of Slender Man, and that's where the creator took it, and he entered in this Photoshop contest with this creepy photo and created a backstory behind it, right? So basically people take to like message boards and forums and they'll create these legends, and they just kind of, other people from around the world will kind of join in on the story, and it kind of grows. Oh, at least in the case of the Rake. And so it was just a couple of guys that, made some backstory on some message board somewhere, and people have now they created like a whole forum where people could come like report encounters with the Rake. It's just kind of grown into its own thing.
And it's like a bullshit creative writing thing, right? Like the people that are writing and reporting encounters are just other people. It's like a group creative writing project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
And no one owns that stuff, so you could just go on there and take their shit and make a movie out of it.
Well, somebody obviously came up with the idea, but since it's on the internet, I think it was always one of those things where it's just kind of public domain because you're airing your idea out there. And since we took liberty on the concept, all we used was the name itself. It's a little more lenient, I think, and ultimately, our co-producers from LA, they did a lot of the legal background checking on it, and they ultimately said, you know what, that we're not worried that if we invest money in this movie and time in producing it with you, that it's going to end up causing us our studio.
Right.
So clearly it ended up being okay. And at this point, we haven't had any legal issues, knock on wood. But
Yeah.
you know, it's, again, at the end of the day, I'm glad people like you discover it and enjoy it. I really wish that more people would check it out. I think that I wish that there was more promotion for the film, because I don't think that its release really did the hard work that we all put into it justice. But it is available on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi, so it's out there for you to watch for free, which makes it a heck of a lot easier for people to go and check out. So I highly recommend people do. If you like practical special effects, if you like monster movies, don't get
urban legends.
by the crappy poster artwork.
Yeah, I think a lot of the listeners will definitely go check it out. I think it just, I think it's, well, like we had talked about the Tentacles movie, it just was marketed to the wrong audience. I think that had it been more spread around the relevant community, I think more people, would see it. And that's kind of the intention here, to do that, to get it to the correct audience, so that way, more people can see it and talk about it. So
well, and it didn't ultimately have a run at festivals or anything like that, and that, I think, is where, as much as I have my ups and downs about festival experiences, I think that a movie like The Rake, if it had been pushed into some of the larger horror or genre festivals, like Fantastic Fest or Fantasia, Scream Fest, even Sundance or South by Southwest, I think that it would have garnered an audience at that point and a reputation just as being a film that was showcased at one of those festivals or multiple festivals. But since it didn't have that opportunity, I just think that it lost out on the ability to find a lot of horror audiences. Because, like I said, if you're a horror fan like I am, like you guys are, you go on Tubi, which is a wonderful mecca for independent horror films and old classic 80s and 70s horror films. But you can spend an hour and a half searching through their horror catalog alone, and The Rake pops up literally like 1,477 movies down from the top, You know
what I've been using Tubi for? I don't know if it's going to happen, but me and one of my buddies were talking about doing a podcast that's an episode by episode breakdown of the Red Shoe Diaries.
Oh God.
And that is, they have that all on Tubi. Tubi's fucking awesome. If you, and it's, you can, to our listeners, you can download it for free on PlayStation, and wherever you download, it's on the PlayStation store, so you can watch it on your PlayStation. Wherever you do apps, it's one of those free things, and there's a commercial every once in a while, whatever. But there's a lot of great content on there. Heavy Metal Parking Lot's on there, which I showed my kid the other day, and we were laughing our asses off. All the Rudy Ray Moore movies, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Return of the Killer Tomatoes, and then yes, every episode of the Red Shoe Diaries, plus the made-for-TV movie starring David Duchovny. Well, David Duchovny was in the series too, but yeah, Tubi, I'm absolutely in love with that. That's a great service.
The fact, it's like, yeah, you've got commercials, but it's unedited content. So I love
exactly.
I'm still watching a rated R movie that's uncut, but it just has commercials, but I get it for free.
I used to be a lot for
if you're in the Midwest, you can get it on Comcast. You don't even have to download an app. You can literally go to your apps on Comcast if you have cable like that, and it'll be there with Netflix and Amazon Prime and Vudu and all that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's pretty neat. Wow. No, I like Tubi. It's a great service for all of your, especially if you're into like the indie stuff, which for the most part, I think a lot of my listeners probably are. So are we going, you've kind of talked about it a little bit. Are we going to get more of the Muck later? Is that a hope still, or?
I'm really keeping my fingers crossed about one potential opportunity right now. I've got a friend of mine, and he's mostly done post-production work, but he's looking to start getting into producing other content, and is really eager to get the Muck out there. So we've been trying to get that put together, and it's just a matter of whether we find the right connection for the money and get it going. So we'll see.
I would love to see it. I think that's something that we kind of need in the horror community. We don't really have too many, good old fashioned creature features anymore. And I think that would be a good one. It reminds me a lot of the in Creep Show 2, the raft.
I was going to bring that up because on the IMDb page for the movie, you mentioned that was an inspiration, and that was one of those things where if you were to ask me about Creep Show, that's all I can think of
is the raft.
Is the raft, yeah, or Ted Danson cockroaches, right? Isn't there one where he's in an apartment?
The tide, the ocean.
Yeah, but there's someone in an apartment and there's cockroaches.
Yeah,
I don't know, but that raft thing, dude. Every time I go swimming, Jaws did not make me afraid to go in the water.
It was
the raft. Yes,
and that's really so. It started where I wanted to do the Merc because it was the ABCs of Death. It was the
M one. I thought about that when I saw that it was Muck. I was like, because the second one was M is for was the letter M. The first one was T. Second one was M. Yeah. When I saw that, but then I saw that you made it later, so I was like, oh well, it couldn't have been.
Yeah, no. But so it was M is for Muck is what we did, but originally I didn't want to do an ABCs of Death short because I thought there's going to be tons of movies in there. We're not going to win. We don't stand a chance. I don't want to waste people's time and money making a short film. And then I literally had 6 different friends say, are you making one? Are you making one? We're going to make one. Do you want to help us on ours? And finally, we just said, you know what? Screw it. Let's just make one. And I had thought about doing the Merc, which I wanted to do a little boy, like, a 10-year-old, 12-year-old boy with his dog going fishing in the pond in the backyard of the house that we shot the Muck in where we were living. I was like, let's just get a kid to go fishing and we'll have Jason dressed up in like a black garbage bag covered in slime, jump out of the water, grab this dog and pull the dog in the water, and then grab the kid and pull the kid in the water. And I was like, nah, I don't want to put Jason in that water because that water is probably radioactive because this pond is gross. So then I thought, well, what if I make it a cheerleader who comes home from school and she is washing something in the kitchen sink and it comes out of the kitchen sink and fucks her face up. And I'm like, nah, why don't I take it one step further and let's actually have it in the bathtub because then we can make it even sexier. And,
oh, yeah.
And I kept picturing Dana from Ghostbusters when she comes home from working out and gets taken by the chair into the kitchen.
Yeah.
Is that why she's wearing those nylons?
100%. I mean,
oh my God, those things belong in the fucking Smithsonian. I could smell those things from my computer chair. Yeah. Seriously. I was like, I wonder if he's got those nylons in a box somewhere in his garage.
Definitely not.
Oh my God.
My wife would think I was a real creep. No, definitely not.
Okay.
But yeah, I would love to see, the Muck feature, like I said, takes place in the subdivision where Laverne, that's the girl's name, she is one of 4 houses that are surrounding this pond. And there's a family that's moved in that's kind of, moving in their house. And so the water's not shut on or is not turned on yet. So they live a little bit longer than everybody else because the Muck doesn't have any way to get in their house yet. And,
right.
And then you've got the teenage girls that live across the pond that becomes the love interest of the boy who's moved into the house. And then like I wanted one of the couples to be like this old couple. And I was hoping to get like, your horror staples, whether it's like Tom Atkins and Adrienne Barbeau, which would be a great nod to Creep Show and The Fog and stuff. Or even somebody a little bit younger, like Barbara Crampton and
sure.
Somebody like that. So we'll see. I've been very excited about the Muck feature-length concept for 5-6 years now, and it would be awesome to actually see it come back to life and ooze out of the faucet in a theater near you.
My only complaint about the short was that there was not more of it, so I would.
That's the beauty of it. There's like the dialogue is the answering machine message, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Other than that, you don't have to worry about. It's movies like that. Like I refer to them as idiot proof because like you think about how simple the execution is. That's not taking anything away from it. I'm not, but I think when you come up with an idea that translates, that is that effective, that requires that little overhead, that's how you know it's a good idea. Right.
And I lend a lot of what people like about the Muck to Robert Patrick Stern, who shot it on his Red camera. I wanted it to be a lot more like cut up, more music video. And, like fast paced music video. And Rob was like, well, I think we should really explore the space more with the camera since there's no dialogue. I was thinking, okay, we're going to just machine gun our way through all this to get her into the bathtub. And he's like, well, no, I mean, what if we do this instead and just really kind of flow through this house as if we're creeping up on this girl like the Muck? And I was like, dude, sold.
Yeah.
And it's such a great location too. Like that, everything from that doorbell to the fucking ashtray in the bathroom. Like it just reminded me of like my grandma's house growing up. Like you couldn't. It's such a great location. Like yeah, like take your time to like enjoy it because it adds to the mise en scène of the whole thing. Of the short.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, we got lucky. Jim Peterson, who's one of our co-producers and the guy who owned the house, he to his credit hasn't updated his house in 40 years. So, it's pretty awesome that the house still looks like that and is habitable. And we were able to shoot in it. We've actually shot a ton of different movies in it. A lot of our feature anthology movie, Skeletons in the Closet, which has the trailer to the Muck in it, which is part of that universe that I said I create in my projects. That a lot of that movie was shot in the house as well and takes place in the 80s. So if you guys like the Muck and you like the Rake, I highly recommend you watch Skeletons in the Closet, which is also on Amazon and Tubi for free.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm super excited. It's I really want the Muck to be a thing. It's so bad. I saw it and I was like, damn, I want to see that movie. Not that I didn't enjoy the Rake. I just think, that the 80s are so hot right now. It's such a big, trendy thing. And then I think, like I said, it's been a long time since we've had a really good monster movie. I think that this would be it. So I'm behind it 1,000%. And if there's anything that, we could do for you to get it to happen, hey.
I appreciate that. I really do. It's all about getting the word out and getting people interested. And, I agree with you. I think that it's funny because I don't really know what the money people in Hollywood and in the film industry really think is what makes a successful horror movie successful. Because you look at a movie like Terrifier, which I'm not personally a huge fan of. I don't really like torture porn, which I think is kind of what Terrifier is. But I appreciate the special effects in that movie. But that movie was super popular, and it's totally a popcorn movie. There's no plot. There's no explanation behind the clown that's killing everybody. There's not even really a protagonist in it. It's just people getting murdered one minute after another, and it's super popular. And I think that midnight kind of drive-in popcorn movies like that are something that the horror audience is really yearning for. And for some reason, people really aren't putting those out unless it's the $10,000 feature that's being produced and put out on, again, Tubi or free on YouTube, or being sold at a horror convention like some of our friends and us do, So
yeah, for sure.
It would be awesome to see somebody look at this and say, look, Stranger Things is successful. It Follows was successful.
Yeah.
There's so many different examples of quality independent projects that became mainstream that are 80s themed,
right,
that this fits in the same universe.
Well, and I mean the 80s had all kinds of movies, like the Muck. I mean, it would be kind of a great love letter to it, I think. I just think, what, if it's going to get made, now's the time to do it. So I'm going to push for you. So
I say make it twice.
Put it out in the universe. Just put it out in the universe for me.
I'm definitely going to do that. Well, Tony, I definitely want to thank you for having you on today. I'm excited to show people your Rake movie, and hopefully, we'll have another one in the future, and maybe when the Muck gets made, we'll bring you back.
That would be awesome. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to have me on the show and talk about our stuff a bit. And I love talking about creepy stuff, so it was great to be able to bullshit for a little while with both of you about all these different things. So thank you.
Sure. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we will see you next Wednesday.